everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Light Gate. We're coming to you from the beautiful city of New Orleans, live in Louisiana, at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Facebook, we are on Roku, we are on Rumble, and we are on YouTube. Tonight is going to be a special episode. We are in pre-record right now, which means you will not see us until October the 6th. We're still in August. I love you all. We have a big chat. Preston's going to explain how that's going to run. We may be in the air as this airs, so we may or may not have signal to be in chat with you at that time. I want to thank our sponsors, Carnation. We love you guys. You've been wonderful to our network, and I love you especially. Been drinking and using your products my entire life. Okay, so let's just get to it. Preston, go.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I truly appreciate it. This is episode 128 of the Light Gate, and as Dolly said, this is a pre-record. We do hope to be with you in chat, but we'll see about that. At any rate, super excited about our guest tonight. So glad you guys could join us. I know there's a lot of you regulars out there. Quick hi to Bob Thorson and Mike Kennedy and Louise and Namaste and all you wonderful folks. We love all of you. So don't think that because I didn't mention your name, I'm not thinking about you. I am. We truly appreciate it. I, of course, am your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. We are very, very excited about our guest tonight because he is also a contactee who remembers quite a bit of his experiences. He's written a book, I'll put it up here, called Why Me? My Lifetime of Alien Encounters. His name is Robert Hunt. And let me just tell you a little bit about him before we get started. We're very honored and delighted to welcome him. As I said, he's the author of the book, Why Me? My Lifetime of Alien Encounters. And this book is a true account of his 63 years as a human being who has experienced the unexplained. His motivation to write this memoir was driven by a lifetime of alien encounters and unexplainable phenomena that must be shared. These experiences started when Robert was only 7 years old. It's usually about when it starts for contactees, and continue up to this day. Robert is now in his 60s. He is a master electrician with almost 2 decades of experience in the nuclear industry. It's kind of interesting, Dolly, considering ETs are very much concerned about our use of nuclear materials. Robert is definitely an asset to his team and is respected by his peers. He's the proud father of 2 children, Keira and Joshua, and the loving husband to his wife, Lisa, wife of 30 years. Robert and his family live and work in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I just want to read a brief review of Robert's book from a reader, because this is an amazing book. Here's what the review says. Robert Hunt has had amazing and diverse experiences throughout his life, though usually unsolicited. For decades, he was not able to share his experiences. He tried to understand his encounters with different entities, all while living a relatively normal life. This book is a result of his curiosity, patience, and level-headedness regarding his bizarre experiences. Why Me is an important and unique contribution to the field of alien abduction and experiencer testimonies. Now, we do have links in the show notes to the author's website and the publisher's website, so that'll make it easier for you to get a hold of this book, which I think you should, and you probably will want to after you hear from our esteemed guest. And I will just bring him on right now. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Pleased to meet the two of you.
Good to meet you as well. Thank you for coming on our show. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a true honor. I always love speaking with contactees. And when I heard you on Simon Bone's podcast, Simon was a prior guest on the show. We adore him. He's just a wonderful man. I'm like, wow, Dolly, we need to talk to this guy. Because there were some things you said, Bob, that I'm like, ooh, I have heard this before. Really kind of unique and unusual details that immediately let me know this guy's for real. I'm also excited because you've got a bunch of photographs to share today, which we'll get to, which is so interesting because not many contactees have a whole lot of photographs. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on. So I guess we'll just get started. Like I said before the show, we were chatting briefly. I do like to start each episode by asking our guests what they were like as little kids. Were you a skeptic? I know contact started for you at a very young age. So
Yes, it did.
basically be diving right into it. But yeah, I mean, how did this all kind of roll out for you?
So for me, it actually started with my sister 3 years prior. So for me, it started in 1964. But my sister Wanda, for 3 years, she had the experiences with these Ewok type beings. I call them Ewok because that's probably the easiest way to describe them. And they seemed to end with her and picked up with me in 1964. So it was on the night of my 7th birthday. And we had just got through wallpapering my bedroom with Tammy 10 wallpaper. It was my favorite race car back then. We were living in a very old house. Back then, it was probably 20 years old. It was a wartime house. And my bedroom was at the back of the house near the stairs going downstairs to the basement. And my 3 sisters were up at the front of the house across from my parents' bedroom. So I was back there by myself. So at nighttime, when I'd go to bed, I'd have the light on, being that age and being that close to the basement. My mother would stick her head in. If I was asleep, she'd turn the light off. It was that night when I was laying in bed, I heard the door squeaking. All our doors in the place were solid wood, so they were heavy. The hinges were old, so it made a very loud squeaking noise if you were to open it slowly. As it opened, it woke me up. I have no idea what time it was. And I could see the door open because next door there was a small little service center and the Bear Safety Service. And there was a light in the back because he had old cars. And it would come in through the curtains. And back then, the curtains weren't like they are now. They were like solid curtains. So when you closed them, it was actually dark in the room. But there was enough light that I could see my room vaguely. I could see the door was opening, and it was quite scary. And it woke me up like wide awake. As it opened more, I tried to scream for help, and I couldn't. And I don't remember if it was because they had done something to me or I was just overwhelmed. But I did try to scream. Nothing came out. It was just these grunts. And as it opened all the way, this small thing came out, not very tall, maybe 3 or 4 feet, laying down. It was a hard perspective to get. They are between 3 and 4 feet now. I've been abducted by them so many times. But as this being came out of the closet, 2 other ones came out too. And my room was very, very small. I think 8 feet wide by 10 or 12 feet long. And probably not even that big. And so she was across the floor quite quick, but the other 2 stayed right at the closet. And when she came over, I got a bit of look at her face, and it was quite scary. It was nothing I've ever seen. And it was walking upright, and I really didn't know what to make of it. So when this being, I'll call her she, because it turned out it is a she, I pulled the sheets over my head because I didn't know what else to do. That was my protection, throw the sheets over
I've heard this
my head. And
yeah.
She said, "Don't be afraid. I'm your mother." Well, I knew it wasn't my mother, but it helped calm me. And she said it a couple more times. And then I lowered the sheets, and I can't remember. She was sort of pulling on the sheets, but I was holding it, and she wasn't pulling tight, but I knew she wanted the sheets down. So I brought the sheets down just to my chest, and I turned my head and looked at her. And once I was staring at her, I couldn't take my eyes off her. And she said it again, "Don't be afraid, I'm your mother." And she really didn't say anything else. So then she started running her fingers through my hair. And
now, was this telepathic when she's talking, or is this
yeah,
verbal?
well, I couldn't see. I was hearing it very differently in my head. So when you talk to them and they do it telepathically, it's very different. It's between hearing it in your head and hearing it in your ears. I don't know if I really picked up on that. The thing is, when they were in the closet coming out, I was vibrating, and I've never done that before. And it felt like a vibrator that you put on your hand. You feel that vibration, but consider it through your whole body, and not as intense, but from your toes to your head. And I was vibrating, and that actually scared me, probably more than the being come out of the closet. And as she got closer, it did get a little stronger, but nothing that was debilitating. And I was so focused on her when she was at the side of the bed, I sort of took my mind off that. But between that, her talking, saying, "Don't be afraid of your mother," and I heard it very differently. It was I couldn't see. Their mouth's very small, and I couldn't see it move, but I really wasn't looking at the mouth moving. I was just sort of consumed by the whole package, like this whatever this was. So she started running her fingers through my hair, and either I fell asleep or I passed out. I don't really know what happened, but when I woke up in the morning, I jumped out of bed. My bedroom was right outside of the kitchen, right beside the stairs going downstairs. My sisters were strolling in for breakfast. My mom was out there getting it all ready. And of course, I started to tell my story. And my sisters jumped on saying they're monsters from the basement. They're there to eat my brains and all this stuff. And I'm trying to be serious. And I could hear my mother laughing, which didn't help, but I was getting nowhere with them. So I sort of persisted a bit, and my mother sort of was agitated, and she said, it's just a nightmare, nothing more, enough talking about it. So I did believe her. I thought maybe, you know what, it was a nightmare. It was so real, but 7 years old, I'll believe anything, right? And but then it didn't stop. I'll continue.
Well, wait, before you go on, I just want to make a few comments that are really interesting to me. One is you mentioned them coming out of the closet. Is that right?
Yes.
So that is so interesting to me. I can't tell you how many people have told me that. I wonder exactly what's going on. I suspect they use the closet as a sort of a way to come in and out of.
Well,
actually, what's happening is that, they come in interdimensionally. They do not just walk into your house from outside. They have to get in. And the reason I know this is you stated it very clearly. You started vibrating your whole body. That is what it feels like to be in an interdimensional field. It's energetic, it's electromagnetic, and it's serious. They were staying within the field to communicate with you. They would not leave the field, which is even more interesting to me, okay, that they did that. The fact that you don't remember is because you were in the field with them. It's like being in an MRI. Not everybody remembers the whole ride through the MRI. They just know that they went in it, but the amount of time that you spend in it just kind of goes out of your memory. And that's because that field blocks the memory in your hippocampus. It'll erase it for you. It's like it wipes you clean. That's very interesting to me. The fact that you froze, I can actually see it happening to you in my head. Do you realize that when we're that afraid, we can't move? It's a natural instinct to stay quiet and still. Don't move. They can't see me if I don't move. That's why people freeze. They don't realize they're doing it, but that's a very, very high amount of fear. And you just explained it beautifully. You went into that zone immediately.
Oh, you froze, Dolly. Bit of technical issues.
Preston? Okay, what just happened?
We just had a quick glitch, that's all.
Okay, that's what happens when you're in that amount of fear. I want to ask you a question. When she touched your hair, she had hair. She was a hairy-bodied being, right?
She was short, light brown hair. I couldn't tell right then because of how dark it was in my room, but I've had many abductions from them, and
Was her hand warm or cold?
Honestly, I don't remember because when she put it on my forehead, and it was just like a hand, though. It didn't. The hand itself didn't feel hairy at all, and as it turned out, it wasn't. The hands and their face were just like a harder skin, and then she just ran her fingers through my hair like my mom would do when I was sick.
Okay.
Well, that was another detail that really intrigued me, is that she's says, "I'm your mother," because I've heard this from a number of contactees. I'm wondering if did you ever get any more information on why she said that or what that might mean? Or do you feel like that was just comforting?
She was always the main one that dealt with me almost all the time, not all the time, but for the large percentage. When I was in what I call a classroom, it was her voice. She wasn't present, but she was talking from somewhere. So she took the lead probably from 7 till 19 years of age. So I've had so many abductions from her.
Same thing. All true contactees have a mother. All of us.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, and it's like a liaison teacher. Exactly, you explained it perfectly. They stay with us. They take care of us. Sometimes they're related to us, which is even more interesting, because if she came and immediately told you she was your mother, that means that you're walking around with some of this person's DNA in your DNA.
I also wondered about that.
Yeah. And it will stay with you until you've reached maturity and you're done learning from them. The only reason I still know mine is because I interact with her because of what I do with them. So yeah, that's how you know a real contactee is. They've got a liaison, a mother figure with them, and it's how they always do it. Nobody walks around without somebody who is there for them, to take care of them. Yeah,
I've heard it several times. A lady named Sandra had that exact experience. It was with a mantid that she saw.
Yeah.
Like, I'm your mother.
Well, I was surprised that she rubbed my hair like that, and it did put me to sleep. It is exactly what my mother would do when I was
she knew what to do
sick
with you.
or you're not feeling
she
well.
Knew she knew you your whole life already. That's the other part about this, is they know who you are before you meet them. They're watching you already.
Another thing I found really intriguing was that it happened on your birthday. I had an encounter on my birthday where I was taken on board. And I've noticed this with other people. They will come down on auspicious days, or, days that are in some way special to that person.
Yeah. It's a tag. In other words, you won't forget. It's attaching to a day that you won't forget,
I can see that.
Yeah. My goodness. So what happened after that? How many more? Did that start a regular contact? I mean, how often
did it? Well, keeping track of time at that age was a hard thing to do, but they were in my life all the way up to the age of 19. Now, they were still in my life after that, but it was maybe once every couple of years. When I was sick, he came into the room, and I'm almost get the feeling that I was told by him that they do have a similar dynamic in regards to the family unit. And so I get the feeling that he was call it the husband of the female, because when he came in, there were two small offsprings that jumped up on the bed. They actually asked for my permission before they jumped up in the bed. They just didn't do anything until I okayed it. He came around and took my hand, and the two jumped up on the bed. So yeah, it was very interesting.
What age was that?
That's after my surgery. I'd be in my 50s.
All right. Okay.
Oh, in your 50s. Wow.
Let's not jump ahead too much. What was the next experience that you recall after this first one?
Yeah.
Oh, the one after that was like almost right away. I couldn't say if it was a week or 2 weeks, probably a week. And what they would do is, I didn't get the classroom thing right away. I was getting mostly I would go up. I'd be naked. They'd take off my clothes, and I would go up. One, I would always hold my hand, and they would do something to me. It was never painful, but there was things going on, and I was kind of paralyzed. I don't think I was ever tied down or anything like that. I just couldn't move, and I was docile, but I was aware that things were going on, and it was only I couldn't even say if it was a year or 6 months that they would leave my pajamas on. I remember noticing they didn't take my pajamas off. And that time I just went to what I call the classroom, where they took me in with and the rooms are very, very unique. They were lit up from everywhere. They were parabolic. So I couldn't really at that age get a feel for how deep they were. And I couldn't see where the door is. I was very low to the floor. I didn't realize that until they set me up to do the glass rod. That's when they would take my clothes off. They would put the glass rod in. My foot was almost touching the floor. And I get it now. They were small beings, and I had to be lowered to the floor so they can do the procedure. But they would set me at a table, a white table. I say it's plastic, but it wasn't wood. I don't know if it was plastic or not. It was a white table and chair. They would sit me down, and she would say, hello, Bobby. And most of the times I wouldn't say anything because I was always scared, even though I got used to doing that for years and years. I was always scared every time I was taken. And I would sometimes say, I'm okay, or something like that. And then she would go into asking me something. And that's where it got foggy. And I don't really understand what that was, but I can remember if she said Robert. So if I sort of came aware and I heard Robert, that was the lead into her getting agitated with me. So it'd go from Bobby when everything was good, but then I can remember coming to, and I say coming to, I think I was always conscious, but I just can't remember. And she would say, Robert, if I didn't respond, and I'd be scared. So when I would hear this, I would cower, and I wasn't sure why I was cowering. But then a pressure would go into my ears, and I'd grab my ears, and I couldn't stop it from happening no matter what I did to my ears. And the pressure would go off a bit. She would ask me something, and I can remember the pressure going on. I remember this happening for probably quite a while. Can I say a year? I can't remember, but many, many abductions. I did learn, I did come into line with their, I did realize the best thing to do is answer, do what I was told. So I think I fell into line, because that ended after, it wasn't that long that they would do that. It did come to an end. So I think I did fall into line. But yeah.
At this point, you got a really good look at them. Can you describe?
Oh, yeah.
Can you describe what they look like?
So think of an Ewok, shorten the hair down to very short. Face was leathery, light. So this is light brown fur. Face was a little darker. The palms are a little darker. They had fingers like we do. I don't know if I ever counted them, but they seemed normal. When they walked, they would walk from side to side. So we walk in a straight line. We sort of offset our balance as we walk.
Right, you're able to move your hip while you stand up. That's fine.
They would actually go from side to side. So when I'd walk down the hall with them, they'd hold my hand. I had to walk slow, even though I was young. I still had to walk slow, because they were sort of like teetering from side to side to get where they had to go. Could they run? Maybe. I don't know. They never had to run after me, so I don't know if they can run or not. But yeah, so they would walk me from. At first, they would take me down on a stretcher from when they would do the rod, and then they would go down the classroom. I'd go down on a stretcher, but they only did that a few times because I was naked. After that, if they left my pajamas on, I knew that I was going to the classroom. They took them off, and they sort of didn't do the two. They sort of separated it. Yeah. So
describe their face for me. I want to know about their facial feature.
Their eyes. So on the picture that I sent, and when we have a look at that, I can show you exactly, but their eyes are jet black. So you couldn't really tell. Like, I can move my eye from side to side. If you're looking at me, you can tell if I'm looking at you or if I'm looking somewhere. You can't do that with them. They're jet black. Their eyes were round, but their eye sockets had a bit of a teardrop. They sort of went quite far out. They had a lot of hair on their eyelids. It was sort of a weird thing. I don't even know actually what the purpose of it was, and I'll describe that when we look at the picture.
Like a cat.
Yeah, something like that. They had a small mouth. Mm-hmm. They had their eyes and nose. Everything was proportioned. They had the 5-star look layout. Their arms are in the right spot. Their legs are in the right
symmetry,
spot.
facial symmetry. Is what you're saying.
Everything was normal except they were short. Their nose is what I always seem to stare at. It came out on a bit of a post, and then it had like a pop can on the end of it. On the side of that, there was pigmentation that looked like sunglasses. That's how I described it. On the very top, there was a tuft of hair. I really couldn't tell between the male and females. I could tell between the small ones. Of course, they were smaller. But between the male and female, I could not tell, except for their voice. Female would always talk to me in a female voice. Male would always talk to me in a male voice. And that's sort of how I knew who I was dealing with.
Did they wear any clothes ever that you saw?
No, they were covered with this fur. There would be no need to, although in that photo, she has a winter toque on.
Okay, now you described their hands. What about their feet?
Their feet were hairy on the top. Couldn't tell you on the bottom. I always walked beside them, or I was laying down. The fur was pretty well consistent. I couldn't even tell you how many toes they had, to be honest with you. I don't know if I'd even be able to tell that. I do remember it was fur, and it sort of blended in as one toe, really. The way the fur, everything was pushed in, you couldn't really see the slits between the toes. So I didn't really get a look at that.
Did you ever reach out and try to pet them or anything like that?
Never. No, I never ever did that. I was too afraid. When you're in a situation like that, everyone says, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you jump? You're terrified. You're just terrified. You don't want to do anything wrong because you don't want to get hurt. And even at 7, self-preservation is a big thing. I knew enough. Even when I was going up, I remember looking down one time, they're taking me up. That's how I knew I had no sensation of movement, because I looked down because I didn't think I was moving. I was moving, and I literally froze. I was afraid if I even blinked, I would fall. It's just so consuming on the terror that you experience. So you don't move until, I pass out and I wake up, and then, I get through that part of it.
Yeah.
So
Let
I
me
never
ask you
talked.
a question. I'm trying to place you on the scale in my mind of how you're reacting to this. When you're at home and there's nothing going on among your friends and everywhere, are you a hyper aware person all the time?
I'm very alert. My wife
Okay.
can testify for that.
Okay.
I'm very quick on my feet. I just had this.
You have really good reflexes and that kind of thing?
There was a massive accident on the highway, and I was the only one that avoided it. And I
Yeah.
had to do some. It was over so fast. My wife said, "I can't believe we weren't in that accident."
Now
I've been lucky that way.
Wow.
It's it's actually it's your genetic predisposition to be that way. That's why you had such fear problems, okay? Because you're always hyper aware of everything. And if you don't understand something, your natural inclination is that bad, no, that's your personality type. When they were teaching you, do you have any memories of any of it at all?
That's the thing. I don't. And I went to a person to try to look into, I forget what, the regression therapy, and it didn't work on me. But I don't remember anything except when I was being punished, and I had many times in that room, and I was only 7. I can't imagine what they would teach me that they didn't want me to know or to share. I can't. Obviously, I knew because they taught me, but they didn't want me to share. And for 7 years old, what could they possibly teach me?
Well, I want to climb in your head for a minute because it's right there. You can remember this, but you're the one that's going to have to do it. Okay. What do you do in life? What did you choose as a job, a field of study? What is your inclination?
I'm an electrician.
Okay. Yeah. That's what you were learning with them. Okay. You went exactly the way they wanted you to go. When they work with humanity, it's whatever you're good at, they kind of amplify it. So you're giving instruction to that. Now, here's a big question for me. When you use the word punishment, what does that entail? What did they do?
Her voice would raise. Well, actually, I'd hear Robert. Her voice, but she'd say it in, she wouldn't be yelling, not totally angry, but annoyed. So when I went from
like
Bobby,
a parent does when you use your
Robert,
full name.
Yeah, I knew I was in trouble. And then when because I didn't know I didn't know the question. I came to with Robert in a louder tone, and I had no idea what was going on. And then my ears would go, and this pressure would feel just like on an airplane when you're coming down. And
you're remembering coming out of craft. That's what you're remembering. You're associating those two things. That wasn't to punish you. They were getting ready. In other words, your memory is like not overlapping properly, and you're picking up two things at one time. I will ask you this because a good portion of contactees have hyper sensitivity to everything. In other words, your mom didn't have to tell you twice, did she? Or your dad?
No.
Okay. That's why. Sounds are louder, pictures are prettier, more colorful. Too many people in the room is annoying as all get out. If sounds are too loud, you're so sensitive that if you're sleeping at night, you probably need to be in a dark place, quiet, do not disturb, because you will instantly come awake and instantly be aware of everything.
I have a noise sound generator to block out.
Yeah.
I definitely have all of that for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear things go bump in the night.
Yeah. There is an association for proclivity to a certain type of job that associates you with that type of empathy. And it is empathy. You're hyper empathic, okay? And your DNA is doing that to you as well.
So is all this is going on at age 7? Are you still thinking, did you think that this was real? Did you understand that this was ET? Were you talking to your parents about it, or was this?
I stopped talking to my parents about it after 4 or 6 months, however long it went. My parents really had enough of what I was saying, and And they brought it to an end by giving me the strap. So I got the strap 3 or 4 times from my mother. And then
So sorry.
I still wasn't stopping because my mom was a softie. So the strap would be more, she was trying to hurt my pride. But when my dad got involved, that was a different story. I stopped talking after that.
Oh.
So I kept it to myself. The few times I did slip at school, and I got razzed, and I realized that, people just don't get it. So I kept it to myself almost all my life. I just,
but you knew it was real. I mean,
I knew it was real. I know dreams are spotty. If you have the same dream with exactly like you're there, and it's this, it's no longer a dream. There's more to it than that. And I've learned a lot, actually, even since the book. I've actually had closure on some things thanks to certain beings. And so I do have in my next book, I'm going to do a big photo things. I have probably another 60 photos. And I had figured out a big chunk of what's going on. So
you realize how psychic you are?
Not really.
So you haven't had any paranormal experiences in your life?
What do you mean paranormal? What do you mean exactly?
Extranormal. In other words, intuition, seeing or hearing energy
precognition,
other than the ones that you saw with ET. Okay.
Yeah. So I actually did remote viewing, just because I was curious. I have had a lot of things like that. I always sort of wrote them off to just one of those things and didn't put too much weight into it. But remote viewing, I was actually amazing at. And it wasn't just that I could draw the hidden photo. It's actually, I could see it in color. And it just absolutely blew me away. It was way over the top, far more than I thought. It actually scared me. I did put a story in the book about that, where it was just full color, the full page. I could actually, my eyes are closed and I can read this page. And it was just like I was looking at it. So yes,
that's psychic. That
is
psychic. So you haven't had any telekinesis, precog, anything like that you can remember?
I can talk to them without talking to them.
Okay.
I've done that I didn't start off doing that, but over time, they just started doing that with me, and I started doing it back, and it worked. And I've done it with some other beings that have come in where it's when they talk to me and it's in my head or something like that, I can just do it back. And it works. I mean, they don't say, okay, like they don't acknowledge it, but they do. They're like when I told the 2 young ones they can come up in the bed, they waited, they came up on the bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's with the help of them, or if that's just something I've been able to do on my own. I honestly
don't. Do it on your own. You absolutely do it on your own. You couldn't hear them or see them otherwise.
How many times would you say you had contact the first year or so?
Oh, it seemed like, honestly, I'd say every week, but I'd say every couple of weeks. They were big on this classroom thing. As I got older, that classroom went to a bigger classroom, almost like a school. And I did put a thing in there. It was a dome. So we were in a dome. When you went outside, it was like a 20-story building, a saucer on the top. And you could see it was sitting there. It wasn't sitting on the building. It was floating. And then it was all sand outside. When they let us go outside to stand, there'd be 6 or 8 of us. It would vary. And we would just stand out there. She would do something inside. Then she'd call us back in. And again, I don't even know what they're teaching us, but I had to help the one girl that went over the edge. We're sort of in the buildings were all attached. So when you went outside, you couldn't leave because you had 4 walls, but it was a huge area. There was a sand dune going down, and then it would go up against the other building, and there were windows there, just the way that area was. And she fell down the hill. We were told not to go near the edge, and she went near the edge. I had to go down and get her. I finally got her up. No one would help us, actually, because everyone was too afraid. And actually, I was quite nervous, too. So I don't know what the punishment was for not listening, but it was bad enough that we took quite a bit of time to clean all the sand off. We were afraid of getting caught. Everyone sort of went away from us when this happened. So, yeah, I think they were big on rules. But
did they know about it anyway?
Honestly, I don't remember. I don't know if they did.
You don't remember that.
So when you say there were others with you, were these, people?
Boys and girls all around my age. Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember how they were dressed?
Casual. Just, oh no, sorry. Not true. There was a time where they were in clothes, but there was a jumpsuit, and I'm going to say an orange jumpsuit, like a prison, but it was, I'm sure it wasn't a prison, but we did have one-piece jumpsuits. I can remember that, and they were orange. I have no idea what the deal was on that.
How old were you when that was happening?
I'd be just in my teens at that point.
Okay. And do you remember any of the lessons you were learning then?
I don't. I honestly don't. I wish I did. And it's just, I don't know why. I mean, you might know, but I don't know why they would.
Well, everything you're recalling now is consciously recalled. I mean, what you recalled has not been through hypnosis. Is that correct?
Yes, I haven't been. I tried that. I wanted to know these things, and she tried.
You're there.
She tried different techniques, and it just didn't work.
Can you meditate?
I've never really meditated.
Do you live in a city where there's fluoride in your water?
Oh yes, I'm right downtown Toronto.
Yeah, you use fluoridated toothpaste.
You can smell the chlorine in the summertime. Yeah,
you're not. Yeah, you can. You have abilities. They're there. They're natural, so that you're able to do them. But the connection to your consciousness, to your actual memory of your being, is not making a full loop with you. Have you ever considered putting an all-house filter on to filter out the water, so that when you bathe, you're not even bathing in it?
At the cottage, I put in a reverse osmosis system, and it's beautiful. I love it. But here in our condo, downtown Toronto, we have a filter on the fridge only for chlorine. I don't know if those filters take out fluoride or not. I'm not sure. But that's really all we use down here. I mean, yeah, I never really thought too much about it.
No. Well, meditation might help bring some of this memory back for you.
Yeah. You have to detoxify your body to reach that level. You literally have to, because your pineal gland is your transmitter and your receiver to your consciousness, to who you really are. I mean, you're only indwelling your body, and your physical brain can't hear it. That's where you're losing the memories. See what I'm saying?
You're saying it's a health issue.
It's a very important health issue. Yes, because you're toxic with this stuff. You, like I said, you might really want to consider that. I'm curious about something else. And as an adult, after 19, did it all stop, or have you continued into your?
It's still going on. It changed after 19. I had these other beings, and people call them the Greys, and they were some of them were like quite tall, taller than a human. Right. And then some of them were smaller, but the two different ones looked different. So the tall ones had the teardrop eyes, kind of an odd-shaped head, really skinny neck, skinny legs and arms, skinny all around, really. And its skin wasn't smooth like ours.
No.
And they weren't bad. I had problems with that, and that lasted a while. And they were more invasive, and I did suffer some things. I don't believe it was intentional. I think I just came to, and they were busy. They did get to me, but it wasn't urgent. To me, when you're in pain, you want something done right away. So it could have been 15, 20 seconds, half a minute. But when you're in that kind of pain, that's a long time to be in pain. So it seemed much longer for me. I don't think it was. They always dealt with it. And there was always a smaller one, almost like the size of the Ewok. They had little lips, a bump on their nose, more human looking. Their eyes were round. They were black too. So both of them had these jet black eyes, but their eye things were a little bit like the Ewoks. They're a little longer at the sides. They looked more human, but they didn't do anything. They just stood there. Everything that was done, there was 2 to 3 of the tall ones, and they were the ones that were doing everything. And these two were just 2 or 3 of them were just there hovering. One would be close to me sometimes. This is when I would come to. It wouldn't be for long. It took a lot of abductions for me to gather that kind of information, because you're just trying to get through. You don't know what's happening. You don't know if you're actually dying. It feels like you're dying. You're petrified. So you're not really paying attention to a lot. You're basically begging them to help you. And that's what I was doing. I was pleading with them to stop the pain, to help me. But over enough abductions, you do get the feel and you do get to see them. And yeah, I just don't think they had great bedside manners. I think they had a plan and they had you there and they had to do what they had to do and they did it. And sometimes I would come to. I might have been abducted a lot more by them and I might not have woken up. I might not even be aware. I was never left with any physical injuries. No, I would have these dots sometimes, triangle dots on my arm and on my chest, never at the same time. It always did seem like it followed an abduction, and this more tied in with them. I never had it with the other ones. It was, so I don't know if it was a device they would use but something, and it would last 3 or 4 days and it would be gone. It never scarred or anything like that.
When these experiences happened, did you recall being lifted out of bed and going through the roof? Or I mean, how was the whole process?
So I didn't really.
Or were you like wake up and you'd be on board?
I didn't really get the vibration from them like I did a lot of other species. I got it from the little ones when they'd come up to the side of the bed. I would get this vibration, but with the I call them grays. I don't even know really what they are, but because of their skin tone, I didn't really get that vibration. And when they would abduct me, I would just be coming to on their table. So I wouldn't go through that hole in my hand, taking me up through the blue green light, be able to look at the underbelly of a ship. I never had that with them. They seemed to be able to get me out of where I was, and I was unaware. It's just sometimes I would come to on the table, and then I'd have that episode, and then I'd be back in my room when I woke up, right?
Wow. Now, did you ever see a UFO, during waking hours during all
of yes.
growing up?
Had one in my backyard. My neighbor witnessed it, and it's amazing. Sean, the next day said, "Did you see that bright light in the backyard?" And that's the episode with the two small beings that didn't speak English. I had no idea. I thought they were talking to me, but as it turned out, one was on one side of the bed, one was on the other, and I was on my side. So I thought he was talking to me, and I said, "I don't understand," but I was kind of paralyzed, but he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to the guy behind me, but it lit up the whole backyard. And so he said, "Did you see that bright light in the backyard last night?" And I really wasn't thinking. I said, "No, what bright light?" I just wasn't thinking about it. After you have so many abductions, you don't ponder on them unless it's something that's really earth-shattering. And I said, "What?" And then he didn't say nothing more. Then I tried to talk to him about it later when it dawned on me. Oh, he's probably talking about that because their craft was about 20 feet by 10 feet. It was oval, had a bit of a bump on the top. It hovered literally about 5 feet off the ground, had a ramp, just like, I don't know if it came out, how it came out. So you had that light underneath, but the bright light wasn't from that. So would you like me to tell you the story?
Yeah.
I woke up at whatever time, and this thing was in front of me, about 4 feet tall, and it was talking, and I was semi-paralyzed, and I finally got enough energy to say, "I don't understand." When I said that, it paused for a minute, then it continued talking. When it stopped talking, I sort of went out, came to, and then I jumped out of bed and I looked out the back door and I saw the two walking down our backyard. So we had 2 lots. We had a fairly big house and it was just in the field. So we had a green area behind us and it was all open. So it was just walking to their craft and I could see them. And can I say they're male and female? I couldn't see them that well, but I could see them. They're very short. And when that door opened, it was blinding. It's like you'd almost have to have eye protection. And that's what Sean probably saw that woke them up. It was so bright. I don't know how these 2 beings walked into that ship, but when they got in, the door closed. They went up about, I'm saying 100 feet, but they didn't go up that far. I could see everything, and they just sat there for 10 or 20 seconds. And at that time, I'd run downstairs out onto the deck because actually I wanted to get as close to this as I could, and they were a little quicker than I was getting downstairs. And then it just took off, and you could literally, it was so fast. I could track it, but they were gone within 3 seconds. You no longer could see that bright light underneath the craft. Wow. Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Did it do anything to the grass? Yeah. Did your yard change? In other words, was there any burn marks on your yard? Did it melt? Anything like that?
Never even thought to go and look, to be honest with you. It just was one of those things. And it's like when I saw the Tic Tac, I didn't know it was called a Tic Tac. I witnessed that with my neighbor. He actually saw it, and it went over top of our house really slow, no sound or no nothing. And we stopped talking. We were talking about something. He was a post office guy. And Tic Tac went over when we were in Whitby. And he goes, "What do you think that is?" And I said, I have no idea. It was silver. It looked just like a giant cigar container. And it was going slow. No wings, no nothing. Perfectly smooth. He goes, "Oh, maybe it's one of those cruise missiles they're talking about. They were testing at that time out west." And I thought to myself, a cruise missile has to have fins. There has to be some smoke coming out. But I played along with him. I said, "Yeah, maybe." I didn't know what to say to him, right? And we're just looking at it. And then finally it took off. And it was a Tic Tac. And I have no idea what it was doing there.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
At any time and during all these experiences throughout your entire life, all the way up to where we're talking to each other right now, have you ever had a message from them about why they exist, why we're here, anything like that?
In my next book, I'm going to put a big thing on it. I know why we're here. I know what ascension is now. I know at least where I'm going, and I know how I get there, and I know how it works. And it was actually amazing. I had 5 visits. The very first one was my ascension story. I had 4 other visits after that, different, because it was just my consciousness that went, not my body. And I could be there, and I was in a different body. So the consciousness, they can move around. It is a thing. They were humans like we are, and they laid it on the line for me. And when she told me that would be my home when I returned, and I actually have all that information. I was in their home. I was in a sitting area where we were sitting outside. It was absolutely. I know that perspective in regards to that. I mean, there's been many other species. I had the aquatic beings, which are those photos of female and the male. I really don't know the whole story on them, but I do know the whole story on humans. It has nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with the Bible. They say we call it ascension because we're moving up in consciousness, but basically we're not the body. So
no, we're not. So that's a message. Do you feel and so you felt compelled? Is this why you've come out? You want to deliver this to people?
I just found this out 8 months ago on my ascension story that happened back in 2017 on the 16th or whatever. I understood that, but I didn't understand the mechanism. Like, how would I get back? She never said I had to die or whatever. It's just my consciousness. You're not the body. You don't need the body. I didn't fear death even at the age of 7. I did not fear death because I knew at that age when this man that said it's just the pain of life. The same man that said one Sunday in August, exactly same man, and that's from there. So that's anyways, my next book will lay it all out.
So when you titled the book "Why Me," was that because you were just basically searching for answers as to why?
I had no idea what was going on. I had too many abductions. They were very different. I had some long-term ones with the Ewoks, long-term ones with the Greys. And then I had this just mix of different beings that would come in that I would be taken by, and had no rhyme or reason. I had another 30 some odd accounts that I wanted to put in the book, but they just went nowhere. They're just visits. And I couldn't tie it into anything. So I tried to put the ones in the book that actually felt like they were leading towards something, because obviously it wasn't random. Had to be a reason for all this. I just wasn't clicking to what that was.
Now, did you ever smell any odors when you were with these people?
Never did. Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say there's an odor on the gray. I've never had anything like that. I don't. Yeah, everything was neutral. So
did they ever give you anything to eat or drink?
No, not that I remember. I remember them doing things to my arms, and the Ewoks did have a way with their equipment. Some of it could manifest from the walls. So it was probably always there. It's just their technology. There were times there were things on my arms. What they were for, I have no idea. So but I never physically got a glass of water from them or something to eat. They never, ever did that. I was never there long enough for that. My visits, I bet you, weren't more than a half an hour. If I was going to the classroom, that I can't really give you a time on that because that's a foggy thing that I experienced with them. But if I was going in for the procedure with the eye with the glass rod, I'd be there. If I had to guess, no more than a half an hour in and out.
No.
I want to describe the how a gray skin feels. I want to see how you react to it. The tall gray have skin like a you know what a Sphinx cat is? They're furless.
Hairless cat.
Yeah, hairless. It's not smooth at all, and it has a texture to it that you go, that's different.
To me, they look like they were creases.
Yeah,
not like a Sharpie. It didn't look like hanging skin.
Yeah, no, not hanging skin. It's just very.
Yeah, I think their skin was probably thick or not flexible like ours. We can take this. I don't think they could take and pull this. I think that they had crease marks on them from their movement or whatever. Yeah. I just think they were so tightly put together. I can also say I've never saw a fat one.
Pinch an inch with a tall gray at all. You cannot. Okay. And they have skin that's literally like what you're describing. I know what a hairless cat feels like. So it's thick and it's like different and you feel the ridges in it. You feel the texture of it. Okay. Texture is a better word. You feel the texture of their skin. Their palms are very smooth though. Like
I've never felt their. Yeah. I could feel their touch on me sometimes, but I couldn't tell you what it felt like. I was never in that frame of mind to focus on anything like that.
And I mean, they have no hair nowhere. The tall girls, they're completely no eyebrows, no eyelashes, nothing.
They weren't wearing anything either. But there was nothing that I would be. There's nothing that I would be embarrassed for them. They look like they didn't need clothes.
They didn't. Okay, so here's the other question I want to ask for you. Which ones are you describing that didn't speak the same language?
So if I had to put, I get the feeling they were like the dwarf type beings, the pictures I sent you at the side of the bed.
Okay.
They spoke to me. He spoke to me in English when he did this procedure on me, but obviously that wasn't their language. He was accommodating me for communication purposes.
Right.
I think I thought he was talking to me, but there was one behind me. I only knew that when I counted 2 going to the ship. He spoke in a language that just seemed to go. Like it wasn't, when I talked to you, I'll pause. It just seemed like it was endless.
Right.
And whatever you had to say, it just started and it just went on. I think that's who it was. But because the only light I had coming in the room, because we're on a valley, was from their ship. And it wasn't that bright because it was coming from underneath. The door was closed at that point. I think that's who it was, but can I say for sure? It just, the size was right. They walked normal. It seemed like that could have been them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to the photos in a bit, but I also wanted to ask, did you ever get to a point where you could speak to your parents about this and get?
No. My father, so I came home pretty liquored up. I hate to say it. I did drive. I was on my motorcycle. I was quite young. I was at the bar across town and with all my buddies. We all had bikes back then. And I sort of snuck into my bedroom. At that time, I was at home. I was quite young. And my parents were right across from me. I closed the door and locked it and went to bed. I woke up with this so bright in my bedroom. It scared the heck out of me. I thought my bedroom was on fire. I pushed myself up against the wall, but then within seconds, there was no heat. It was just, and it was hard to look at. I was straining to look at it. I just woke up and I was straining to look at it, but there was no heat. Then a man's figure was in the middle of this. Now, this was bigger than my doorway. So I don't know what happened, but it was quite large. And I'm watching this and the man put his hands out. Man, I don't like to bring religion into it, but if I had to say who did he look like, I would describe as Jesus. Had the long hair. That's what came to mind. And I don't know
why. Have wings?
What's that?
Did he have wings?
No, I didn't see that. It was so bright. I didn't see that.
Anyways, but he was really large?
Oh, yes. Huge.
Like his hand could cover your whole head?
Oh, I couldn't even, I was taking peeks at it. It was so bright. It was like looking at someone arc welding. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. It was
Yes.
so bright. It was hard to look at. And I was, of course, scared because at first I thought it was a fire. And then I got more scared when I realized it wasn't a fire. So then I didn't even know what it was. And then it went away. Now I know this being or whatever did say things to me. I do remember some type of an interaction. Again, what he said, excuse me, I have no idea.
Do you have the flavor of the interaction? Was it comforting? Was it good? Was it curious? Did it make you question something?
When he put his arms out to me, it felt welcoming. Like, you know, it wasn't, you know, like I got that sense that I was not in danger, but, you know, I still had a few beers in me and it was still terrifying. But the real thing is, and when I got up in the morning, so I had wet myself in bed. We had a dog that peed everywhere. This thing was terrible. I thought it was a dog. So I don't know if I was so scared that I actually soiled myself. And I think that's probably what it was. But I wanted to blame the dog. I jumped out of bed. I threw in some clothes that were dry. And I went to find the dog because I was mad. And I was going to probably smack the dog. I don't know what I was going to do. But anyways, my door was locked from the inside. So I thought, okay, so it's not the dog. So I went upstairs. My dad was sitting there. He was a truck driver. And sitting there without a shirt on, having a cigarette and a coffee. That was his morning routine when he was home. So I sat down and he said to me, how was your night? I said, oh, like any other night. I don't like to get into it because he didn't like the drinking thing and especially driving. And he said, what were you doing in your bedroom last night? Excuse me. And I said, what do you mean? I went to bed. He said, was your light on? I said, yeah, my light was on. He said, well, we woke up and so there's my door and his door. It was so bright, my door, that it bled through all the cracks on his door.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
And he said, your mother could see dust particles in the air. We thought the house was on fire. I ran to the door and I put my hands against the door and it was cold. He said, I put my hands on the knob and it was cold. I opened the door and the light was gone. So I don't know what you're doing. He said, but you were clearly doing something. And I couldn't tell him because he was you couldn't talk to him about that stuff. It wasn't a real thing. And he didn't want to talk about it. And I learned that the hard way when I was younger. So I played it off as he still assumed I did something and I know exactly what happened. And that's the way it is.
Guess who probably visited you?
No
Probably
idea.
had an Anunnaki in the room. That's why I asked you if there were wings on his back. They don't have wings like angel wings. They fold back. Okay.
So what did you call them?
Anunnaki. We're all related to them. They are direct progenitors to us. We have their blood. Okay. And they are monstrously huge. And
it was, like I said, it was bigger than my room.
Yeah. Yeah. And cold precedes them. They have to be in a cold environment. Can you imagine being that big and not be in a cold environment? They take it with them when they come. When they come, he would have come in with his environment with him interdimensionally, and it would have dropped the temperature in the room 20, 30 degrees easily. Okay.
I never noticed.
Yeah. And that's why I said, did you see the wings? And if it was that dark and behind him, because the light was so bright in front of him, you might not have seen them. But they have wings and they can fold
Just
them
a
back.
silhouette.
Yeah.
The long hair.
Yeah.
I could tell it was
Their hair is long. Yeah. Sometimes they wear it straight. Sometimes it's all.
But I don't understand the connection with me. I don't understand. I never saw it again. It never happened again. It was
That's because you are. I would not call you an abductee. I want you to stop thinking that because it adds to your fear. You are a contactee. And there is a reason for the contact. It's important for you to understand that you are essentially not a target to them. You are a child of theirs. You are more likely hybridized than you know. And this is an interesting situation because your fear is blocking you from knowing everything that you need to know. And I'm glad I'm talking to you because I want to try to convince you to drop the fear. You are definitely a contactee. And if an Anunnaki laid his hands on you, you are more than a contactee. I've had contact with Anunnaki as well. You're not describing anybody I haven't already seen as far as.
Probably has very extensive contact.
Yeah. And when you said the guy was huge, That's why I asked you if his hand could take your whole head, and it's yes, they're that big. And there's only one being like that, and it would be the Anunnaki.
Now, when your
I
father
feel bad
described,
in the sense that I don't research very much stuff. I'm always busy with the family, with the cottage, with work.
which is probably best anyway, it doesn't.
And I
work out.
honestly, I'm ignorant to that whole thing. And it's only been the last year that I've actually started to look into it because I have a little bit more time to do that. So I wasn't aware of that. So,
Now, when your father described seeing this light, what were you thinking? Like, oh, I got
I was
confirmation.
thinking I was going to
It's
get a smack.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's all I was thinking. So when he wanted me to come clean, there's no way I was.
But it's
coming clean.
confirmation, so that's got to be at least.
Oh no, it is definitely confirmation. But yeah, I was more worried about getting a.
Were you ever missing from your bedroom when people were looking for you?
Yes. So guys at work, I had a big, that was actually a scary abduction. I was in Ottawa. We were doing a huge transfer station, and I think I was at a Comfort Inn. The restaurant was attached to it. So we had a crew, and we were all electricians, and we'd do a 10-hour shift, and we'd go back to the room. We get changed, go to the restaurant, have a couple pints, have something to eat, and then I would go to bed and watch about an hour and a half of comedies because I can't watch shows with people dying and that. My wife knows if she wants to watch a movie like that, she'll ask me, you going to bed or you're going to go read or
Always the same.
can't watch it. I just
I
but
cannot
anyway,
do it. Ever. Not at all.
Yeah.
I won't press don't watch that stuff around
I
me.
don't get
because
it. I don't really
I
understand
can't
that,
watch
but
anything where anyone's hitting each other or
I just can't.
murders involved.
Just,
Can't take
my
it.
wife will testify to that. I can't. When I'm forced to have to watch something like that where someone's house,
Yeah.
We were watching Star
I
Trek
find it
and they were hitting
disturbing.
each other. I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, it's like, help me. Yeah.
So I'd watch an hour and a half of comedies, and so I came home. I forget whatever day it was. We came back to the hotel. A whole bunch of us were done the shift. I win. I dropped my coveralls, the things down, and I took one boot off, and that was it. I felt like I got hit with a hammer. It was like a big snap in my head, like an elastic band going off. When I woke up, I was laying flat on the bed. My coverall still down, and my one boot still off. But it was I had 15 minutes to get to work. It was the next morning, and the guys wanted to know where I was, so they all went to the restaurant bar. And I didn't show up. So Mitch and someone else went to my room, knocked on the door. I didn't answer. They looked up in the parking lot. My vehicle was there. My truck was there. They walked around. I was on the ground floor, and they looked in, and they could see I wasn't in the room. My boot was there, but I was gone. And they could see the light on in the bathroom, but they hammered on the glass. I didn't answer. So they were a little concerned. And when I went to work, of course, I got the 50 questions. Like, where were you? Like, we thought you had an accident. So I lied. I just came on the spot. I said, came back, got in the cab, went to another restaurant. I wanted to try and I got back late. And I knew it wasn't going to fly. And I could tell that they just looked at one another going, what? Like, trying to figure out what I was up to, that I would have to lie to them. But they were pretty good about it. They let me get away with it for a while. And then it sort of pittered off. And because I couldn't tell them, because in the industry that I'm in, they're really
Probably not a good idea.
they need to know that you are
Everybody is trustworthy.
for duty.
Got your back. Yeah. Electricians depend on each other. Your life is literally on the line,
I'd work in a nuclear reactor like
Yeah.
once, twice a week. And, when you go in a radiation suit and everything, they got to know you're fit for duty. Right?
Yeah. Now I understand why
I sent you that one photo just to.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. Now, did you say your sister had some level of
So
contact?
same beings that I spent a big chunk of my life with, they spent 3 years with my sister. She didn't want to talk about it. And my other sister, Sharon, said, why don't you write a book? I wanted to just write the book just for my family. I was going to write it, just go get it put into a book and give it to all my kids and my sisters and that. And this has been my life, believe it or not. I wanted to not go to my grave without telling my story. And as it turned out, publisher got a hold of it, and then an agent, and then it blew up, and then publishing house got it, and now it's a published book. But sorry, where was I going with this?
I was asking if your sister had experience.
Oh yeah. So my one sister came to me and said, I talked to Wanda, my other sister, my oldest sister, and I told her you're writing a book. And she asked what it was, and it was about extraterrestrials, aliens. And my sister said, oh my God, really? And then she told my sister, yes, they were with me for 3 years. She never told anyone, even when I was getting a belt, when I went through all that. And she even told the parents, she even told my parents that it was happening to her. But yet, you know, I didn't know any of this. They obviously didn't believe her either, but she had enough common sense not to go on about it. But yeah, she really wasn't comfortable talking to me about it. She did. I did ask her if I could put it in the book, just a small little blurb, and she said she was fine with that. But I don't know to the extent she doesn't want to talk about it, which makes me think there might be more to it. But again, I might be reading into it. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe she just went through. They would come in, they'd start rubbing her feet. They would rub her legs to calm her. So they had a bit of a different thing for her because maybe that was the approach they had to use. And but when you go on for 3 years, when someone says, you know, this went on for 3 years, it's more than 1 or 2 abductions, right? So
Sure, yeah.
She just doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't. She's afraid of that stigma. She has a pretty large social group. She looks at it a little differently than I do.
What does she do in her life?
She really just, her husband made all the money. She basically was just a mom. She had 2 amazing kids and a stay-at-home mom, and that was sort of her career.
Okay.
So, but she
No
has
indication,
a big social group because of that.
no indication that your parents ever had any unusual experiences, because this is
No, the way they behaved. The funny thing is, and I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but we're all O negative blood type. All my sisters and
There
me.
you go. Go
Yeah,
there. it is.
all my
Yeah.
sisters and me, and someone mentioned to me that they had heard something about that. I never really researched it much. I really don't have much of an understanding. I did put a blurb in the book about my findings in regards to O negative, but I really don't know if that actually ties into anything. I don't know.
Did you ever feel compelled to have your ancestry done? Your DNA pulled?
No, I never did.
oh, that might prove interesting. Because
I don't know what they would find. I don't know much about that. We probably come from the Basque. Were they the O negative? I think that's the research I came in.
O
right?
and A negative both. Yeah, I'm Basque as well. I have A
Oh.
negative. Yeah.
O negative. So
Yeah.
maybe there's something to it. I don't know. But my other 2 sisters never ever recall abductions of any type. So I don't know why they focused on my sister Wanda, and then basically a big chunk of my life with me. They obviously had a plan. Well, I kind of know what that plan is now, but I don't know how many different species were involved in that. If some of them were just random abductions, but I do think the Greys had something to do with helping me. I honestly think at the end of the day, they weren't doing just research. I think they were actually doing something for my benefit. The small dwarfs were definitely doing it for my benefit. And there was another really strange thing that happened when I was in Las Vegas. And yeah, that's another story. I don't know if you want to actually hear that. It's in the book.
What year was that? What year?
Yeah.
Oh, that was only like 4 years ago or something like that. Not very long
Yeah.
ago.
Really? Like in 2021?
Yes. We went to Vegas, and my wife was a keynote speaker for her law firm at Pebble Beach. And from Pebble Beach, we rented a car and we went to Las Vegas. I'd never been there. My wife has. 2 or 3 nights in, I was visited by this chrome looking, I don't even know how to describe it. It came up to me and it frightened me so much. I actually pushed back, and I've never done this before with my consciousness. I actually defended myself without raising a hand. It scared this thing so much, it actually jumped back. And I could feel a push from my consciousness. I don't know how I did it. I have no idea. I've never done it since. But then it came forward. I felt bad after I did it. I actually said, I'm sorry. Like I felt like I hit someone, and now I was apologizing. And it came back into focus. The only light I had were the lights. We're in a really nice suite at the hotel, and they had some floor lights for our safety. And it lit him up, so I could see. It looked like smooth bands of silver.
What month was it?
What's that?
What month?
We went down there, I think in March. I think it was March. No, I'd have to look. I'm not 100% sure on that. But it actually was really, really, I got this sense of just total kindness. Like it took all my fear away. And I just stared at it after I apologized. And And then it sort of just went back into the darkness. Well, the interesting thing is I was very sick. So I think I had COVID-19. Wasn't really identified, but I was on my 3rd round of antibiotics. They were doing nothing for me. I had to go. My wife said, "You're going, unless you're in the hospital, you're going." She's strong-willed that way. So I went. But 2 or 3 nights later, I woke up and there was my head was in a box. I couldn't feel my arms, my legs, nothing. And there was a light over my head. I couldn't really see where the light was, but I'm looking at this box. There's a hump, and I saw smoke come over this hump, and I could feel coldness in my lungs. And then I would come to for this, and then I sort of black out. I'd come to again, and there'd be another round of smoke. I'd be watching. It would come over. 3 times it did this, and my lungs, I had 2 days after that, and 1.5 days after that, my lungs were clear when I got on the plane.
Yeah. Do you have any scarring from it?
I don't know.
From the COVID? I'd be interested in asking my doctor if I were you, because I bet you money you don't. That's a healing. You realize that, right? You're healed.
Yeah, no, I do, because
Right.
I was so bad. I'm not kidding. I was so bad that even to go someplace, I would have to sit down. I was in fear for my safety, in the sense that I said to the wife, as soon as I get back, I'm going right to the hospital. So that taxi can drop me off at the hospital. I said, I'm not going home. I said, I'll be lucky if I make it home. But she just sort of, okay, you can go to the hospital as soon as you get home. And when I got on the plane, I'm telling you, I felt normal again. So yeah, that's what it felt like. It obviously wasn't the antibiotics. I was on my 3rd rounds and they were doing nothing. So
No, they were healing you.
yeah, and I do believe it was COVID. I had the headache. I had I couldn't taste anything. I didn't know about COVID at the time, so I just wrote it off as one of those things, right?
Now, do I remember correct that you had an encounter in the basement, or of your home? Your fear of the basement in your home?
Oh no, I was just our basement was really, really old on Beaconsfield. It's when I was 7, and they tore up the cement floor to do something with the sewers, and they never put it back. So our basement wasn't livable. It was in pretty rough shape because of all this construction. So anytime I had to go get something from the basement, I was terrified. So, and I was close to the basement. No one else was. That was my fear of the basement. And that's why I had the light on every night.
How old were you? Did you live in that house until you were an adult, or how long did you live there?
Lived there 3 or 4 years, and then they widened the road. They bought all the houses down the one side on Beaconsfield, and they tore them all down. So we moved at that point. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right.
Did you move further into the city, or were you a little more isolated?
No, we were in the city a bit. Yeah. Right near Greenway Park, a massive water treatment plant, but it was a park just down the street. Yeah, it was a nice area. The house itself, don't get me wrong, was a nice house. It was just really, really, really old. And, it needed a lot of oil on all the hinges and just needed some work done.
Well, I'd love to go through some of the photos now.
Sure.
Because this is really interesting to me. Some of these photos are quite startling, and it's a rare contactee that gets any photos at all. So here, that's the title of the book, Why Me? Congratulations, by the way. I know it takes a lot of strength and courage to put something like this out there.
I've already made my money, so what can they really do to me?
Exactly. Okay, let's see. Here's the first photo.
So this is the Ewok being, and there's an actual picture after that of the one beside my bed. But that you're looking at is pigment. It looks like sunglasses, a little bit of tassel of hair on the top, and something like a mouth or something underneath it, almost like a mini nose and a mouth. And it was I was in a really tall bed. It was one of those special mattresses, and it was quite tall up. She's probably 3.5 feet tall, and she had to tip her head back. And I don't know how she could see me or what she was doing, but that's her nose. That looks like the pop can. And on the next photo, this is when we were in Newcastle. No, not that one. So there's another photo where right there. So if you enlarge and look at that, the head right there. So you go large, see that nose with the pigment on it? Mm-hmm. That's the nose in the other picture that's looking over my bed. Look, I say it looks like a pop can because it comes out on a shaft and it goes straight up and down with a tassel of hair on the top, and that's just pigment. And there is a little bump and a crease. She never spoke to me through her mouth. It was always through telepathy. You can see the tassel of hair on the head, the black part that was darker brown than the fur, but that's a toque. If you look at what's on her, you can see it. It's an actual winter toque. This was in January. Obviously, she was cold because she actually had a winter toque on for whatever reason. And yeah, that's her nose. You can see the eyes. It has that thing in the eye. I don't know what it's for, but and that's the and if you went back to the other picture, you now look what the nose looks like. If you went to the other photo, you can see that nose looking over the edge of the bed.
Very interesting.
And
wow.
This is something else going on in my lap, which I won't even go into. So it wasn't there alone.
All right. And what are we looking at here?
So this is the drawer, the one that had the lab jacket on that actually, I thought I wasn't on a spaceship. I thought I was in a hospital with all the pipes coming out of the floor. They wheeled me up a ramp, put me around the corner, dim the lights. This is the young gentleman doctor that actually came up the ramp when I actually came to. I was actually leaning over. I could touch the floor. It was that close. And I said to him, how are you? I'm glad to meet you. Startled him. He looked at me, then he smiled. And he actually was, it's funny, he was a handsome guy. I thought to myself, this is a handsome being. In other words, most beings don't look like us. He looked very similar. If you enlarge and look at his ear, you can see his ear. It's long and it's pointy at the side of his head. And then you can see his nose, his lips, his eyes. And he's a dwarf, I guess. That's really all I could come up with. And he just stood there, and this was after my surgery, and he was just there for comfort. He actually did put his hand on my hand, and I think 3 or 4 minutes went by, not very long, and then I blacked out or went to sleep. I don't know what happened. I think I blacked out, and probably because of him. He was just gone.
So how did you capture these photos? Did you have like a
so
motion sensor or something?
Yeah, so years before that at the nuclear plant, the boys were talking about deer hunting. And I was using a camcorder that wasn't working. The battery wouldn't last long. I'd have to watch the whole thing. And it wasn't infrared. And the trick was using the infrared. For a lot of these, if you didn't have the infrared, you're not picking them up. And I do see them, but they let me see them. But they do have a way to mask that. And I do have a couple pictures where you can see where they're in and out of that frequency of focus. But I have the camera. So I probably moved, and it was enough to trigger to catch him, or because I could see him. So he wasn't masked. So I imagine he moved because I looked like he woke me up, actually. And then when I woke
this
up,
is the deer cam. In other words, it's an infrared.
So this was the S55 or whatever it is, deer camera. It was an old camera. That's actually a pretty good picture for that camera, believe it or not. But yeah, you don't get great pictures because it's infrared and it sort of processes the picture a little differently. If that was in color, it would be a good picture. It's far better, but when it's infrared and at night, so it's dark in the room. That's what you're picking up. If it was enough light, it would automatically do color. But you can see its nose there, its hair, its eyes, its winter toque, and then you can see it looking over the bed. Oh. And that's the one that said she was my mother.
Wow. It's amazing that you were able to get this on.
And you can see my eyes are wide open. I'm not sleeping. So there is communication going on, and this is in the dark room. This is sometime during the night. And if you look at my eyes, they almost look glossed over. So I don't know what the deal is there. But
that's the infrared. That's your retina flashing back through your eye.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah, I get that in a lot of photos. It does have that effect.
It's like cat, you see cats at night, or any animal, wild animal, they get those eyes. If you have any sort of a light source near them, they're mirroring the light. Infrared does that to humans. You're mirroring the light from your retina.
Well, you can see I'm awake during this. So they're
I wonder if the curtain is being affected here in any way, because it looks a little different from over here. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it.
Yeah, I used to do that all the time too. I'd analyze everything, and a lot of times it was really nothing. But I'd go through the motion. You never know, right?
Right.
Yep.
Okay, let's move to the next one. Here's where you just
Yeah, I just
analyze.
labeled it just
All right.
because it's true. My wife's looked at some pictures. After I describe it, it pulls it together. If she just had to look at them, if you haven't seen a lot of extraterrestrials, it takes the brain a while to put it together. So yeah, she could see that after I.
Well, I think the important thing is, there's something there that's really not normally there.
No, looking over my bed, it's there.
Wow. Okay. This is
That's
close-up
that's
of
the one that said she was my mother.
All right.
Now, you can see the thing with the two eyes looking at the camera. So I did find this a lot. When my camera would go off, it would draw their attention. My camera would go off 3 times, 3 to 5 seconds in between each flash. And the first flash, I don't always get 3 pictures, even though it's supposed to, and it's programmed for that. I only got 1 on this, but it's looking at the camera. So if you look at my hair and my hands, I'm being tugged on. And that's one of the things that, for some species, when I'm taken, I actually, and there is a blue-green light. My camera's not picking it up, but this is happening. I'm starting to get ready. And then this thing takes the covers off me, the sheets, and then up I go. But you can see how it's pulling on my hair, pulling on my hands. It's actually starting to pull on just me. It doesn't pull on the bed or anything else. It doesn't pull on the sheets. It's like they lock on me and I go. And I got that out of 3 photos. That's the only one I got out of the 3.
All right. So here's a close-up of that same picture.
And you look at the hair. I mean, how else are you going to get your hair like that?
Good point. Not that
you
I
can see
would
my
know.
eyes. I'm not happy about what's happening. I got my eyes closed because it is always frightening, right?
Yeah. Okay. So there's where the being is. All right. I'm glad you pointed that out.
You can see the eyes there. And it was very hard to see this being. I could, but it wasn't like solid. And I actually have a really good photo of the translucent on the bed, and it's going to go in the next book. And you look and you can see it. It's perfect, but it's not solid.
All right.
However, this was a very interesting night when I was out west. There's 2 heads above me, and that's me at the lower sleeping. And I call this one the handshake because if you remember the old modems, they would do this handshake and you would hear it. You hear this noise it would make when it was connecting.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a handshake. I woke up to the handshake, and these 2 things were in the headboard. Now, I sent you, I don't know, did I send you that picture of the hand coming out of the headboard?
I don't know. I'm going to
they can come out of headboards. They can come out of walls. They can come out of anywhere, and they can function in between the 2. And I actually have a lot of photos of them in between the walls and me. And it's probably what you said. They're
interdimensional. They're in a different.
Yeah, they open up something. 3 times they sent me this handshake, and each time the pressure built in my head. I could feel them moving me. So they were solid. I could feel them around my head pushing on me, but I couldn't move. But this handshake, the 3rd time, if it was to happen a 4th time, I thought it would have killed me. I thought it was them trying to communicate with me for something that I'd be familiar with. And this handshake, I'm very familiar with. It makes a sound when the internet's hooking up on this modem back in the day. And then basically I passed out. I came to, jumped out of bed, looked around, figured out what just happened, and went to the camera. And sure enough, so yeah, 3 times, but it was in my head, wasn't in my ears. This pressure, every time this handshake happened, the pressure built up like water pressure in your head. And it actually, the 3rd time it did it, I literally was squeezing my hands and my toes. It was painful, and I was fearing the next one because I knew at that point each one got worse. And honestly, I thought that might be it. I thought maybe I'm being killed, but it ended at that point, and that was it. And I have no idea what the goal was. Or you can see the one, you can actually almost see its face, its nose, and its 2 eyes. The one in the higher part, and then the one in the lower, you can see its 2. Like if you look deep into the face, you can see the 2 eyes, the thing around the snout. I don't know if you can see that. I can't really interact with it, but
All right. Well, let's move to the next set of photos we have going on here. Oh,
So this one was when I was in space. My consciousness. I could see myself in my pajamas, but I knew I wasn't in space. It's a ball beside my bed that came up to the side of the bed, and my camera caught it. So, excuse me. And then I'm looking at two worlds in space. They were turning opposite directions. One was large, one was small, one was blue and looked really fruitful. The other one was a lot of brown. There looked like there was a lot of lakes on it, but it was brown, but they were spinning towards each other. They were both spinning. The one on the right was going counterclockwise. The one on the left was going clockwise. I couldn't figure out what it was all about, but I witnessed it. But if you go to the next photo, it's beside the bed, and then it's over my face. If you go to the next one, it actually climbed up. There it is over my face. You can see that. It's no longer at the side. My eyes are open, and that was during that experience that I'm actually witnessing. I thought I was in space, but clearly I wasn't. But but what they showed me did make sense in later abductions. I do understand what those two worlds were. I just didn't know at the time. But can you make out the fog around my head?
Oh yeah.
And then my eyes, you can see I'm wide awake looking into it. I wasn't looking into the room. I was in space at that point. And I don't really, I don't know how that works, but that's how it worked for me.
Interesting. All right, here's another. Oh wait, that's a close up. Ball of smoke hasn't come. Yep, let me see it. Okay.
Now, this was scary. I was again out west, so I was a liaison for our union. We're running a 500 volt line across the prairies. It's a big job. We had like 400 guys, helicopters, and my job was to make sure everything went good with the boys. And so I was stationed out there for a year. When I was in bed that night, I would watch my shows and everything, put the pad down, going to sleep. Well, I wasn't even going to sleep. Put the pad down. My hands started to hurt. So really hurt. My arms started to hurt. And I actually was thinking maybe I was having a heart attack, because they say when your shoulder, your arm starts to hurt and nothing else is hurting, that could be a sign of a heart attack. But it was on the opposite side of my heart. But nonetheless, this is what I was thinking. So I was going to get near the phone, which was on my other side. I was going to dial 911, even though I knew I had to go through the front desk, because I don't think you could dial. I think everything I had to do had to go through the front desk. I was starting to panic, but then it got so debilitating, I couldn't do anything. I just held my hand there. You can see a ring of smoke around the top. When this thing came, sort of oozed out of my hand somehow, I don't even know how. It was very painful. I saw the ring of smoke, and I'm just looking at it. Now I know I'm not having a heart attack. I just didn't know what it was. And it was still super painful, but it did step out. If you look at it, you can almost see there's eyes. It did step out of my hand, and it sort of went to the sheets. I have another picture of it happening again, and I actually have the two beings after it stepped out onto the sheets, and it wasn't me that it did it to. And I have a great photo on that. But there it is. It's out on the sheet, and now it's just staring at me. And I don't know what's going on. And I actually sent you a picture, I think, which gives you a better view of the face, a black and white.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Even bigger. So it was a black and white, and I enlarged it. And So right there, you can see its nose, its two eyes, and it's got its two hands. You can see it at the front. Not a clue what it was all about. No idea. As soon as it stepped out, my pain was gone in my arm. You can see my hands back to normal. It's on the sheets. It's looking at the camera because the flash went off, and I think they see that ultraviolet light. I think that they can actually see that, and you can see it. And it's I don't know what it is, to be honest with you, but
very odd.
Lasted for about, I don't know, half a minute. You have no concept of time is out the window when these things are happening. You're so overwhelmed, you don't keep track of any of that. You're just living in the moment, and then it comes to an end. And I got knocked out, I guess, and then it was gone. And that was that. I put this in the story because I had the photos, and I didn't know really And as you can see, it actually attached itself to my hand, and it attached itself to the sheets. So I don't think it could function without having some type of a material to, because the other pictures I have, it's the same thing. It came out of the hand, but then it went right to the sheets, and it used the sheets to form its body. So yeah, I don't really know much more than that. And then, like I said, it lasted maybe a minute. I just stared at it because I couldn't move. I wasn't going to move. Like, you just freeze, and it just looked at me. It wasn't upset or anything. It just stared at me, and then I woke up in the morning. So,
wow, a lot going on.
I don't know what that whole episode was about.
Okay,
now, if you look down, this was the night of the ascension. This is actually was what made me want to tell my story. Because right up to then, my wife was the only one that knew something was going on. I did confide in her, and she was the only one. And it was only late in life when I confided in her. I call this thing a snake. It's on the edge. You can see its two eyes. I think I sent you two other pictures after the fact. It actually lingered around afterwards. And you have two other photos with it on the bed, and they're in different positions. It came out. So this is actually, and I will send you the timestamped ones. This was 2:47 a.m. in the morning. The snake on the bed was 2:47 a.m. And within that minute, it came up, it lifted me up onto a sitting position. If you look at it, you can see its eyes, its nose, its tail, and you can see me looking through it vaguely. My eyes are wide open. And this was that whole ascension story where I was moved up to a higher level of vibrational consciousness. This is the only time I was taken in solid form. All the other 4 times. So this is actually, this being is taking me to humans. So I don't understand how that works. I don't understand. Maybe this is the only thing that could transport me there. They only had the technology to move your consciousness. I don't think they had the technology to move my body. And I think this is what whatever this thing is, it actually took me because I was gone. So
can I tell you something? I know what I'm looking at.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, it's not a snake.
Is this an energy being?
It is not a being. It is an interdimensional ribbon
Energy.
of energy.
Yeah.
And it can move around you, hold you, pick you up, lift you. And it is psychically directed to get around you and pull you up. And
well, it did.
Yeah, and that's an energy ribbon. It is not a snake. That is
see, I call it a snake because I didn't know what to relate it to for people.
A snake. That is an interdimensional energy ribbon. That's what I see when I go up. It comes down. The first time I went up one, they put my hand, well, that I remembered outright out. They put my hand on their hand, and then I touched the ribbon, and it took me up. It pulled me up.
Because I could still go around me.
Yeah.
And even though my eyes are open.
Yeah.
My eyes I couldn't see. Like they went down like there's a river. Like
everything became opaque, correct?
Yeah. And then when I came to.
You're in the ribbon right there. That is not a snake. It's not a being of any kind.
Well,
that is,
I will not call it a snake anymore. So what did you call it?
It's an electromagnetic interdimensional ribbon of energy that they can move at will with their minds, and they use it to pull you out.
Well, that's exactly what they did.
It's their technology, and it can lift it. It could lift your house off the ground if they wanted to use it to do that. That's how. But I know you're telling the truth now, because when you said you couldn't see anymore, everything went weird, and you told me it's opaque. That's it. You're in the ribbon and you're going. You actually got that on film. That's crazy. That's what it is.
I have 53 photos of this. I have actually other beings that are actually involved in this.
Yeah, there's usually sometimes they'll just send the ribbon for me and I just jump on because I know what it is. I'm not afraid of it. Okay. But yeah, it's always, they travel in 2s and 3s, never anything less than that, really. It's weird to see one at a time. There's always one near it somewhere. It's for protection for them because they don't know how you're going to react to them. You could actually hurt them if you wanted to.
Oh, I
yeah,
wasn't in any pain. I didn't feel threatened.
Well, that's because they don't. They're not against us in any way. Yeah. But yeah, that's exactly how I describe it in the book. My book.
Yeah, it took me up to the humans.
Yeah.
And those 2 planets that I saw in space
Yeah.
were the two planets when I was there. And I looked up, they were side by side.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see the planet I was on because my perspective, it was behind the big one. So those two planets are the two. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what this ball of thing was over my face, but it was showing me where they said that would be my home. And that's when I met the girl and the young guy, and they told me that this is what we call ascension. Obviously, they don't call it that.
No, did they say that word to you, ascension?
Yeah. So
okay.
when I came to after this, I was dancing and there's ballroom music going on, but I couldn't see anything. I was like blinded. I had my hands, the music, I was spinning. I didn't feel my legs moving. It was like being on something that you're just spinning around. But I wasn't threatened because it was music, and my hands, I could feel fingers locked between my fingers.
Yeah.
I pulled away. When I pulled away, the music stopped. I took my hand. I still couldn't see anything, and I put my hand forward. I wanted to know what was going on. I still wasn't really threatened, but I was very confused. I felt hair. I rubbed my hands. It was long. So I'm thinking a girl, right? But anyways, I felt the face, the ears, definitely human. When I went down, felt the shoulders, I went down, I felt the breasts. And then I pulled my hands away and I said, "Oh, you're a girl." She said her exact words. "Yeah, yes, I am a girl, silly." I don't even know why she said that because I couldn't see anything. I was blind.
Yeah. Well, they don't.
Yeah,
they
but she
have
was only
weird,
she was like 20 or 22. She was very young. She took me by the hand and I still couldn't see. It's only when I went into that room that the room just came to light and I was in the room. I did look back and it was a black wall. It wasn't even like, I don't even know what it was. I was hit with a vibration so hard, I was in fear for my safety. I wasn't threatened by them. This vibration was debilitating.
Oh, it's intense. It makes me puke. The first time I went up, I remembered I puked.
She set me down cross-legged. She said, "I'm going to sit you down so you don't fall." She said, "Cross your legs so that you're stable." I crossed my legs. She sat in front of me. She had a nice white summer dress on. She looked very young, very pretty girl. And this young guy came from behind her. He looked younger than her, but maybe he wasn't. White socks, casual wear. I don't even remember, but they were just neutral, whatever he was wearing. They looked at each other. They smiled. She looked at me and she said, "The dance was welcoming you to this level of vibrational consciousness." So I didn't really know what she meant by that, but fine. But it was clear because I just remember it word for word.
Can I tell you something that you don't know? And I'm going to teach you now. Okay. Your ability to understand things literally comes from where you're at, what your education is, what you're learning, what your language understands, your perspective totally. Okay. When they're talking to you, that's what you're interpreting it as. Okay. This is really hard to explain, so I'm going to try. Everybody thinks while you're listening to me right now, your inner mind is talking with me. It's hearing what I say, but your consciousness is listening to it also and thinking its own thoughts. Okay. So when they communicate with us, they're talking to two things. They're talking to your physical mind and you're talking to your consciousness. Your physical mind is your interpreter because that's where you're at. That's what you've learned and that's what you understand. So all the language that you're using to us right now is from that perspective. These are words that you've heard from here. These are understandings from the perspective of here, what those things might be that they've said to you. All right.
So
it is important for you to understand that it is, you're very close. You're this close to 100% recall. I mean, you're there. Okay. All you have to do is work on detoxifying your pineal gland. All right. Getting it out of your system, all the chemicals out of your system. And it's going to take a little while. We're talking weeks of clean, fluids. Do not let anything bad for you touch your skin as well. Like if you've got a shower and it's full of fluoride, and it would be if you're in the city, don't take a shower like that. Use
filters that will take out fluoride.
Your skin.
Kind of hard not to, but yeah.
I know, but you have to try because you're that close. What you're saying. I hear you. You're that close. It's right there. It's right on the periphery of your memory. Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like it.
What's going to happen when that happens is there will be once you make that kind of contact with your consciousness and hearing from your consciousness what's being said to you, things are going to flip on you. You're going to hear things as they really, really are instead of how you're interpreting from your physical mind. Okay. And I want you to be wide open to understand that. All right. Because you're using terminology that they use in the world today, and it is absolutely incorrect. You've heard it so much. That's how you're interpreting it. All right. Consciousness is what it is. In other words, it's always there. I've always been conscious. All consciousness exists at the same time everywhere throughout the entire universe. Okay. You are in consciousness. Your physical mind, though, is new because it was born when you were born and you're being educated through it. There is no vibrational ascension. That's what everybody here says that is not true. It's incorrect. Now I'm going to tell you how they meant to say it to you. I'm going to be your interpreter. Okay. Let's see how you handle it. We are consciousness. Our consciousness has its own signature vibrational frequency. Your mind does match that because you're hearing your own self. So your mind transmits in that frequency. What they're telling you is, as ascension is that when you leave here, you leave the body behind. That's correct. And your consciousness goes to be somewhere else. That is not ascension into a higher realm. It's ascension is you're leaving your body and going to be with them, okay, into a different place. Now, what they also told you is you might be born again into another body with them. In other words, you're not coming back to Earth. You're going to be born with them.
So you're right. No, you're right. And I think maybe I didn't explain it right. The 4 other times I went back, at least 2 of those times I was in a female body. So my consciousness just went into a container that they had. But the very first ascension, I think what she was referring to, the vibration of their world or them, I think they're vibrating at a much higher, because when some beings come close to me and I vibrate, I feel that it's because
you're confusing yourself. I want you to hear me.
Am I?
Yes, you're confused. You're confused. You're
okay.
You're putting stuff together that's not okay. All right.
Okay.
Your consciousness has its own frequency vibration itself. Right. But when they physically come to you, you're in an interdimensional space with them. And that's when you vibrate, because being outside third dimension, inside this energy field, has a frequency that is so loud.
Well, that's what I'm referring to. When I was there, the very first time I was.
And you're not going into another container. You're going OBE. And that is when you OBE, when you go out of your body, you're no longer this. You're no longer the flesh. You are who you are. And you more likely are a female OBE. In other words, your consciousness is probably female. We all separate out that way. Okay. We're either a female consciousness or a male dominated consciousness. Okay. That's who you are. All right. In the universe, you had to have one or the other, or sometimes a little bit of both, but it's always one or the other. And when you leave OBE, you become who you really are. You're not going into a container. You are who you are with them. And that's how you feel yourself and see yourself. But you're confusing yourself into thinking you're in a container. You are not. You are out of body with them, out of this dimension. You're fully physical. Okay. Consciousness is physical, whether you realize it or not, because you're here. It's hard to understand that you actually have dimensional physicality as an entity, as a consciousness. When you're OBE, and that's why I want to know if you meditate and whether you can OBE or not. You can remote view, but OBE is a different experience. You actually feel
I bet you'd be really good at it. I
know you would be. Yeah.
But
I know you're doing it all the time now. You're just not making contact with it.
We have like 5 more minutes, so I want to get through the rest of the photos we have. There's just a few more photos, but
okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Is this a different?
Yeah. So if you look at the being, if you look at the chair, you see its head. If you zoom in, you can see its eyes, nose. There were like 7 or 8 of them on the bed. This is just the very first one that crawled up. The next picture will show you their hands that he used to climb up. So there should be 3 long alien-looking fingers. That's not it.
I don't see it. Yeah.
So that's not. So you'll see this. You'll see me in the same bed, but you'll see the huge 3-fingered alien type hand come up on the bed right there. So, and you can see it's underneath its hand. So it got up onto the bed.
Right here.
Pulled itself up. That's its hands. Yeah.
Yeah. Zoom in on it, Preston.
Yeah, you see its face and its mouth underneath its hand. So it's up on the bed. There was probably 7 of them up there when I actually managed to get my head up in bed. I honestly don't know. They were very nice. They just cuddled in. They just sort of sat on me and laid on me, and I kind of didn't move because I was afraid. The hands scared me greatly, and I just laid there. And then I guess they put me out. And then when I woke up in the morning, it was over. But I remember it so clearly. And there was a bunch of them. And I have no idea what the purpose of that was.
And these are the little short ones that you're talking about?
Yeah, well, yeah, these are completely different ones. Completely different. I honestly don't even know what they were, but they were very, I didn't feel threatened. They took that, they did, when they were all in the bed, they took away that extreme fear. I actually.
Oh yeah, they will. They won't let you.
There's no harm coming. I just, when you're in a situation like that, you don't know what to do.
Yep.
You really don't. You don't move, and hopefully they don't see you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we just have, I think, one more sequence here. Oh, okay. Wait, hold on.
That's the very first camera
that
I took. That's 1 megapixel.
Okay.
It was a heavy thing. So this will be in the new book. See the hand coming out of the headboard? I have 11 photos. This is like 3 a.m. in the morning. My wife was in England, which she with her law firm. They did looking at Lloyd's of London stuff. Anyways, it came out. My room's dark, but not that dark because I'm right downtown Toronto. I saw this thing come out of the headboard. It startled me. You can see I'm startled. I threw my hand up, but then it just it sat there. I took my hand to see what it was, and it actually grabbed my hand. And it held my hand. And it came out of the headboard. Like you can take that and have it checked for whatever you check for to see if it's a fake. It's not. You're welcome to do that with any of my photos.
I've seen it myself. I've had them. I've seen it. You can't even imagine what I've seen. Okay.
And I've got a bunch of them.
Yeah. So it's amazing. You're
7
actually.
months I went through a hand thing with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you a question. I want to get you to understand something else because you used the word.
Let's just get this last.
Okay, last picture. All right.
Segment here.
I'm in my room. I feel this vibration. My hand starts to hurt. So I take my hand, I look at it. You can see it. My hand unwinds with smoke. It's spinning like a little mini tornado. That's a hand. This was part of the hand thing I went through. I have like a lot of hand things. And these are, see the fingers?
Yeah.
And this is a hand. And what it did at the end of this, whatever it was, it formed a hand. And I just looked at it. And yeah, again, you can have that checked out. There's no photo, like I've never done Photoshop anything, only contrast and brightness.
Yeah.
And that is like a mini tornado, and it actually formed a hand at the end.
Wow. Okay, this is the last one.
This scared me. So this isn't in the book, but this will be in the next book. It pulled the sheets off me. I'm watching a movie. That's why I had to black out it. Pull the sheets off me, 2 hands, and it's pointing up at the sky. And I'm telling you, when something like that comes out of your bed, pulls the sheets off you, you don't even breathe. You're just frozen. I grabbed the sheets out of instinct because they're pulling it off, and I just grabbed it. And this is another one of those hand ones. I got about 11 of them, and they went through this period. And I don't know if it's a species. I have one with a snake-like being sitting on the end of my bed, and it's crystal clear. Its legs, its arms, its head, and it's just sitting on the foot of this bed. But this hand here, there's 2 hands, and you can make them out, right? You can see the fingers sticking up, and it was just pointing up at the roof for whatever reason.
Because they're above you. They were above you. They were in a craft above you.
Maybe.
I'm trying to figure this out about you, okay? I'm dying. I'm now becoming obsessed, okay? Have you ever been harmed, maimed, or thwarted in any way by these beings?
No. I overreacted with the grays, but that was just an overreaction. Was I harmed? No, there's nothing lingering. Was I in pain? Yes.
Sometimes, well, in real life, you're in pain too, and I'm going to bring this to you. When you go to the doctor, are you in pain sometimes? You get poked, prodded, and needled?
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
Okay, so it's a temporary thing, and we accept it because somebody's trying to help us, correct?
That's what I figured was happening.
Okay. You are not an abductee. To be abducted means literally that you're taken against your will, that you are held prisoner, not returned, and damaged in myriads of ways. Abductees not 10 times out of 10 are beaten, hurt. This is a real thing on this planet. We abduct each other.
Rarely ends well.
Yeah.
I've never been.
ET doesn't do that. And I think that a lot of your encounters are literally them trying to make their presence known to you over and over and over again to break you of the fear.
I agree that they are really repetitive to get my attention.
Yeah.
It's hard to really understand what the whole hand thing was. But I would be curious. I'd be interested to send them. I have so many more photos that I really can't explain why they did what they did. But
well, there's a lot.
We're pretty much out of time, so we're going to have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We have a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I wish for you only perfectly good things. I know you're an honest to God, genuine contactee. Okay. And I also know that there's a reason for it. All right. And why me was a good way to start this little road out for yourself to understand. You were shown visions of leaving here. You're not the only one who's going, though. It's not just you, it's everybody. See what I'm saying? And
well, one Sunday in August, that's what I was told.
Yes. And
wow, really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, it's going to be incredible. And I would pursue that with vigor if I were you. In other words, you already have contact with them mentally. You don't even need a physical visitation from them anymore. You can have conversations with them, you know?
Well, I also I have probably about 3,000 photos. They started off with numbers. So I'm telling you, it's mind blowing. I've kept them for 7 or 8 years. It's been going on, and it's still going on today, but not as much. It's like things are sort of rolling to an end. I still have contact with them, but it's not like it used to be.
No, it's not going to be physical contact. It's all mental. That's what I mean.
I never really understood the numerology thing, but I have thousands of them, and they take my attention and they put it right on, and it's always 5 numbers. And it's never different, and it's always at that time. Wow. And it did get my attention, and it got to the point where it was almost an obsession, where I was taking the pictures every time it would happen. I just stopped doing it now. It's just too much work, but it still happens. They still lock in on 5 numbers, and I think that if I get off the path a bit, I get more of them. If I'm more on track, and I sort of get a feel for this, like just that sort of thing, right?
Well, we're going to have to wrap it up. We're out of time. Thanks so much, Robert. Really amazing. Blessings to you for having the strength and courage to come forward. And I wish your book.
I'm going to have you on again. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. When is the other book due to come out?
I'm in the midst of writing it. It takes a lot to put a book out.
Yes, it does.
And there are mistakes in this book, which we missed in editing, but nothing major, just all minor things. I don't want that to happen in the next one, so I really can't put a date on it. It's going to be a much bigger book. I have a lot of photos, so I want to do a good job editing. So I do want to make sure that I'm on the right path as I explain it, because clearly I learned some things here today that I was not aware of. Even though I do some research when I do put a topic in there. I don't know if you had a chance to read my book. I do recommend reading it. It will answer a lot of questions that I had talked about today that you might not be familiar with. But thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thanks for sharing your story. And I hope everyone checks out your book. And again, the notes are in the show. The links are in the show notes. So everyone check it out. Thank you, Robert. Really appreciate it. Great success to your book. Can't wait to read the next one.
Right.
Amazing.
Then don't go away after we sign off. Stay on with us for a few more minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Sure. All right.
Thank you,
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on the Lightgate. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana, from the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We're on Facebook, we're on Roku, we're on Rumble, and we are on YouTube. Everyone have a wonderful week. Namaste. See you next Monday.